Iran announced today that it's accelerating its nuclear program. Guess who loses with that? America and its allies. There was an airtight agreement we had with inspectors on the ground, the most intrusive inspection in all of human history, not hyperbole. We knew exactly we were in every single facility, the International Atomic Energy Agency, and they were not violating it. They're not good guys, but they were not moving toward a nuclear weapon. And there was no chance they could get there without us knowing it at least a year to 2 years in advance, giving us plenty of options.
Joe Biden's delusional. But remember, Joe Biden has been reliably, and in this way, he's actually very useful in foreign policy. He has been reliably wrong on every foreign policy issue of any importance for 40 years. Whatever Joe Biden wanted to do or didn't want to do, the opposite of that thing was the good idea. So Joe Biden's great in this way. Just make sure you oppose Joe Biden on any foreign policy issue, and you'll be in good shape. And here he is saying this Iran deal was ironclad and airtight. And, well, hold on a second. What happens when the Iranians want to just decide to restart their nuclear program? It's just like, okay, let the assembly line start going again. We're supposed to live with that as the reality of the Iranian state? We're supposed to let the Iranians, and by the way, they always leave this out. There were sunset provisions in this process. No sunset on the Iranian nuclear program, mind you. Just if you obey, if you do, what we've outlined in this agreement, which allows them to keep their nuclear program, keep sending, aid to terrorist regimes all across the Middle East, threatening our people, taking our Navy sailors hostage, making a mockery of them, all the stuff that they've done, all the things, all the provocations from Iran. And with all of that, they could still, at any point in time, do exactly what they're now threatening to do, which is just start spinning the centrifuges again. And they think this was a good agreement? Why should we live with an Iranian state that is already there, that is at that point? Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to wait 5 or 10 years till Qasem Soleimani, for example. Well, this isn't a problem anymore because he's taking a very long nap. But while Qasem Soleimani, he was going to come off the sanctions list, they were saying at one point, come off the nuclear sanctions list. Other individuals are going to get removed from it in time. That there were all these inducements, and all along, Iran gets to keep the essential infrastructure for its nuclear program. And eventually, the agreement just sort of isn't an agreement anymore. Oh, so that's great. So let's let Iran develop much more of its critical military infrastructure, become much wealthier, become entrenched in the international financial system, find all kinds of ways to hide assets, to build up its coffers, to modernize its military. Let's give Iran a decade of no worries of external strikes, keeping their nuclear program in place while their military gets stronger, their government gets richer. And then at the end of that, we'll just come up with some other idea of what we're going to tell them. You see, no, at the end of that, then we have to say, hold on a second. A bigger, wealthier Iran with better weapon systems, a better military, could just decide, you know what, we're going nuclear now. What are you going to do about it? So here's the other problem. Rogue states that get nuclear weapons, then we're in the North Korea situation where it becomes very, very different. You think we're ever going to get Iran to give up its nukes once they have them? It's never going to happen. So all they have to do is get to that place. And if they raise the calculation, if they make it hard enough for us to be able to eradicate their nuclear program because their military advances, because they become a much stronger country. They were greatly weakened when Obama came in. Their economy was in free fall. Things are not good in Iran. There's all kinds of tumult. They just had to execute in the streets hundreds of protesters, right? So there is real instability in this country. The young people, this is often forgotten. There were such great losses from the Iran-Iraq, I keep bringing this up, but it's important to understand where we are now with Iran. There were such great losses from the Iran-Iraq civil war that the mullahs decided that they needed to pay major state subsidies so that Iranian women would have more children. And so what you have is post the horrific war, over 1 million casualties, killed, wounded, is a horrific war in the 80s in Iran and with Iran and Iraq. They lost so many young people that were actually using them as cannon fodder. Using them as landmine fodder. They lost so many young people that the mullah said, okay, we're going to start subsidizing children to be, women to have children, families to have children. And now you have this youth bulge which is why we keep talking about the young in Iran. You have this youth bulge. A lot of people in Iran, demographically, there's this, there's the fat end of the wedge demographically for the Iranians, is you have all these young people in their 20s and their 30s, and they're like, what is with this? This regime stinks. The regime's terrible. What are we doing here? Now, can they say that openly? Of course not. The Iranian security and military apparatus is very invested and has become, unfortunately, quite adept at suppressing those voices. But they got a problem because eventually enough young people have no real future, no economic mobility, no freedom. What exactly does a 20-year-old Iranian today really have to look forward to under the current circumstance? So there are these pieces in play that would make it harder for the regime to continue doing what it does. Now, maybe the regime isn't toppled. Maybe the regime just changes internally. Who knows what ends up happening? And we've been waiting for this now for over 30 years, over 40 years, going on 50 years. But by throwing them a lifeline, because Obama and the Democrats and the left in this country really still have a guilt complex over Mossadegh. They really feel like everything bad that's happened in Iran is somehow really the fault of the United States. You'll see some leftists who think this. It's the fault of the United States because we were involved in the coup to remove Mossadegh because we were still playing great game politics with the Soviet Union, and we did not want Mossadegh to be in charge in Iran. But they never then explain how it is that when the Shah, who we helped keep in power, who was a bad guy, although, of course, the mullahs are much worse guys, the mullahs effectively hijacked the revolution against the Shah for their own purposes. And this so often happens in countries where a regime is ousted with force, right? That there's a legitimate grievance, of course, because that's how you have popular mobilization against a government. If a government's doing really well, I mean, there's a reason why you're not seeing popular mobilization against the Swiss or against Singapore or against Norway or something. People are like, yeah, things are pretty good. A government has to be inept, decrepit, ineffectual, oppressive. But that doesn't mean that the people that end up in power once that government is gone are in any way really an improvement. And that's what you have in Iran. So it is, in effect, the fault of the Iranian. I mean, it is, Iran is an Iran problem ultimately. I know, again, we're going to some pretty basic, some truisms here, some things that are self-evident, but sometimes self-evident truths need to be repeated. It is the Iranian people who have, or it is Iranians who hijacked the Iranian Revolution against the Shah and have made this country into a place that is an abysmal failure in so many ways as a state. After, millennia of withstanding cultural onslaught, dealing with, you go back through Persian history, and the fact that Persians even just maintained their language and this cultural distinctiveness from the huge surge of what was effectively Arab Muslim expansionism starting in the 7th century with the Prophet Muhammad and then going all the way. The fact that the Persians were able to maintain this Persian identity and that Persia as a polity, as some form of state has existed for so long. In fact, it predates Islam, right? And it dealt with the Mongol invasions. Really crazy stuff happened back then. They have maintained this, and yet they continue on.
We will defend America. The strikes we took over this past week, including killing the terrorist Soliemani, we will continue to take if we need to. The American people should know we will always defend them, and we'll do so in a way that is consistent with the international rule of law.
You can always tell who you should like in this administration based on how much Democrats hate that person. Very important. It's an ironclad rule at this point. The more they despise a member of Trump's cabinet, inner circle, an advisor, anybody, the more effective that person is and the more a threat that person is to the progressive left-wing agenda. And so that's why I can tell you that Pompeo is good at what he does and is a good choice, has been a good choice for the administration because, man, do libs hate him. Almost as much as they hate Bill Barr, who is probably the single biggest threat to left-wing attempts to oust this president using the weaponization of the bureaucracy and the abuse of congressional power and the DOJ and all the rest of it. Russia, all that stuff. But the strike that was taken here has obviously set up a situation where we could see a major retaliation. I don't know what exactly is going to happen, as I've been telling you. I do know that there are hundreds of thousands of protesters that are going in the streets in Iran, and from that we are supposed to take the Democrats' word that this is representative of the broad opinion of the Iranian people, which I don't think is true. And then we're also supposed to believe that this is somehow a marked departure from what existed before. And also, I didn't get this before. They say that Trump is lying. That is, of course, a part of this, that there was no imminent attack, that this is all a fraud. Here is the president just speaking his mind on what exactly pushed him to take this very decisive action. Play clip 42, please.
Soleimani was plotting imminent and sinister attacks on American diplomats and military personnel, but we caught him in the act and terminated him. Under my leadership, America's policy is unambiguous to terrorists who harm or intend to harm any American. We will find you. We will eliminate you. We will always protect our diplomats, service members, all Americans, and our allies. For years, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and its ruthless Quds Force under Soleimani's leadership has targeted, injured, and murdered hundreds of American civilians and servicemen. The recent attacks on U.S. targets in Iraq, including rocket strikes that killed an American and injured 4 American servicemen very badly, as well as a violent assault on our embassy in Baghdad, were carried out at the direction of Soleimani. Soleimani made the death of innocent people his sick passion.
And yet the Democrats seem to mourn his passing. They will say, we don't mourn his passing, but then they'll say, this is a terrible decision. We're now close to war. Trump never should have done this. And some of the media will refer to him as, what was it, the most revered military figure in Iran. That was how they referred to him. Oh, wow. And then you have, of course, the conspiracy theories. Wag the dog, perhaps, they say. Here is Elizabeth Warren trying to pull this all together in one perfect little package for insane, Trump deranged Democrats. Play 38.
The question is, why now? Why not a month ago? Why not a month from now? And the administration simply can't keep its story straight. It points in all different directions. The last time we saw this was this past summer over Ukraine, when people started asking questions about what had happened on the phone call between Donald Trump and the president of Ukraine and why aid to Ukraine had been stopped. The administration did the same thing. They point in all different directions and give a whole lot of different answers. And of course, what it turned out to be is that Donald Trump was doing what Donald Trump does, and that is he was advancing his own personal political interests. And I think the question people reasonably ask, is next week Donald Trump faces the start potentially of an impeachment trial. And why now?
That's Elizabeth Warren in the most slimy, dishonest, passive-aggressive way possible, saying that Trump killed Qasem Soleimani because of the impeachment trial. Yeah. The impeachment that, by the way, makes Democrats, unless you're somebody who's just delusional, this whole impeachment thing is ridiculous. Nancy Pelosi saying there's urgency. Now they're saying, whoa, if we don't get the witnesses we want, we're not even going to hand over the articles of impeachment. I'm also seeing they might add a third article of impeachment. Probably killing Qasem Soleimani. Well, first the Democrats are waiting for the Ninth Circuit of Appeals to rule the Qasem Soleimani strike unconstitutional, I'm sure. And then Nancy Pelosi will, add on to this, right? Then she'll make it another article of impeachment. They'll stack what they already have with the third article impeachment. And he killed Qasem Soleimani, a revered military leader and austere religious scholar, according to libs. We could see something like that happen. In fact, Nancy Pelosi, as if we haven't seen enough just ridiculous politics from the Democrats recently, Pelosi has announced that she and the Democrats are going to pass a war powers resolution, or have, I should say, a war powers resolution vote. Because the Democrats, who march in lockstep, you got to give Democrats credit. They're like the Borg from Star Trek. I mean, they're just like a machine that is always unified and in lockstep on these issues. We have all these fights, on the Republican side. We got people that are, I know about this, I know about that. Democrats, it's, is that what the statists, the socialists, the progressives, the wokeness, is that what they want? Boom. Everybody does it. Obamacare, everybody on board for it. Getting rid of Trump or, impeaching him, which they know won't really get rid of him, but almost all of them were. I think there was one, Tulsi Gabbard was a voted president, right? And then there's that one Democrat who switched sides, but people have already I forgot the guy's name. People have already forgotten his name. Maybe he'll do more stuff. Point here being that the war powers resolution this is for show. This is theater. No serious person thinks otherwise. Oh, yeah? We're Pelosi and the Democrats so worried about the War Powers Act and the 30 days of military action from a president before having to actually cease it unless Congress continues it. Were they worried about that during, Libya? Were they worried about that during the Clinton administration and in the Balkans? I just want to know. Where does the principle begin and the politics end? With Democrats, we all know the answer is that there is no place where principle exceeds politics. Politics always dictates everything that they care about, everything that they do. This is simply utterly absurd. It is dishonest. I do think that Secretary of State Pompeo, to bring it back to him for a moment here, is correct when he says, play clip 24. Producer Mark, play clip 24 if you would.
If you're an American in the region, days and weeks, this is not something that's relevant. We have to prepare. We have to be ready. And we took a bad guy off the battlefield. We made the right decision. There is less risk today to American forces in the region as a result of that attack. I'm proud of the effort that President Trump undertook, and the execution by our military was phenomenal. And the work that's been done by our diplomats in the region to prepare and to work diplomatically in the region has been powerful, important, and effective.
Indeed. Democrats say all of that is essentially a lie, that we're not better off, we're not safer. We'll see in the days and weeks ahead. Well, here's a headline that will certainly excite many of those on the left who are hoping that President Trump crashes on the rocks of this impeachment fiasco. Former National Security Advisor Bolton is willing to testify in the Senate impeachment trial if he is subpoenaed. Everyone's wondering, is Bolton going to be the one who finally... Here's where I have to say, we've been so consistent here for a long time on this. I don't care if the president did have a quid pro quo for the aid to Ukraine. I don't see this as the problem that so many other people see it as. I think the president had a legitimate interest in corruption. I think the Bidens are a legitimate target of inquiry. And, it's interesting, isn't it? Democrats will just decide some people are off limits. Like all of a sudden, Qasem Soleimani's off limits for a military strike, for investigations. The Bidens are off limits just based on what they want. I mean, what's really the principle here? What's the separating, the definitional difference between why somebody should be subject to investigation or to military strike in the case of Qasem Soleimani versus somebody who isn't? Just the whims of the Democratic Party, it seems. That is the single most important thing that we're all supposed to believe determines everything else. So we might have Bolton testifying, but we also don't know if there's ever going to... I still have that bet with my man Jesse Kelly, my buddy. I got to see if, in fact, I'm right that Nancy Pelosi does transmit. Remember, I said that she has to transmit them at some point. Otherwise, this just becomes too ridiculous. Now we're saying they're trying to maneuver after doing it. They wanted the impeachment done, and now they're maneuvering to bolster the case around impeachment. Now they're maneuvering so that they can try to come up with some rationale, some explanation beyond what they've already offered for why the President of the United States should be removed from office. But they know that it's weak. They have to know at this point, because it's in their interest to know that this is absurd. This is bizarre, in fact, that Democrats have presented this to the American people, thinking, if they do think that it's going to make anyone safer, it's going to make anyone change their mind. It will not. I saw a clip that had to do with gun safety, and all of a sudden it got jumbled in my brain for a second. Now, Schiff. Shifty Ship. We have not heard the last of him when it comes to this impeachment fiasco. Now, Democrats still believe that they're in a position to dictate the way the Senate is going to conduct the Senate trial. Now, so Democrats, when they're in the majority, it's their way or the highway. When Democrats are in the minority, it's, oh, no, but you have to do what we want because a bunch of stuff we say. But wait a second. I thought we'd already established. No. Because a bunch of things that we've said. Oh, okay. Here's Adam Schiff. And by the way, they also like to talk about how the election can't have any, there's no election integrity going forward if Trump wins. They're setting the groundwork for this right now. Make no mistake about it. Trump, I do believe, is going, and I'm going to stop saying Trump's, look, here's my prediction. Bruce and Mark it down today. Trump's going to get reelected, okay? I have confidence. He's going to get it done. We got 4 more years. Okay, I'm not going to say it anymore because you know what? I don't want us to be overconfident. I don't want people to stay home. I don't want people to think that they don't have a voice that matters in this process because Trump's got it. No, in fact, I'm worried that will lead to Trump losing. So I'm not, no more I think Trump's going to win, but now we're all in. You got to win it. We can celebrate the victory as long as you want after, right? We can celebrate the 4 more years for 40 years after it. I mean, look at how we still talk about Reagan. But we got to get there first. And I do have my concerns that, look, Trump, the wall isn't built. People might get a little complacent. Democrats were caught napping in 2016, no question. And that's why there was such an outrage and a freak out about this. It's also why, all this Russia stuff that they concocted, they knew some of it beforehand, a little, the internet stuff that was going on. They didn't freak out about it, though. Why didn't they freak out? Because Russian interference wasn't such a big deal. Well, it wasn't such a big deal in the sense that it didn't change anything, but, because they assumed Hillary was going to win, so it didn't really matter. Russian interference would not have mattered. Keep this in mind. Democrats would not have cared about Russian interference in the election if Hillary Clinton had won. It wouldn't have mattered. Okay, because that's the right outcome. How can you be upset about the right outcome, right? If you have a binary event, one of two things, one is good, one is bad. If I told you, you have a terminal disease, and I gave you the antidote to save you, but it turns out that I stole that antidote, but you're still saved. Do you care? No, you do not. You're just happy that you're saved. That's the way the Democrats viewed the Russian interference in the election. It didn't matter because Hillary's going to win. Oops, nope. Turns out Hillary didn't win. They still think she did, but she did not win. And then you have Schiff running around being as just disingenuous and dishonest as he ever has. I mean, Schiff is an abject disgrace. I mean, he is the worst of the worst as far as I'm concerned when it comes to any Democrat. I know he's a leading Democrat in this impeachment thing, but the guy will say anything, and his whole I'm just so upset about this, and I don't want to do this. Nancy Pelosi's prayerful, except when she's waving her hand at people like this. Don't do that. Don't cheer. Got to fool the remaining 5 morons in this country who don't realize that this is all a sham that Democrats are running against the president because the president's been so effective. There's a part of me that feels a little bit of, I'm not going to say sympathy, but I kind of get where some of the Democrats are coming from on this stuff because what are they going to say? We hate all this economic prosperity, relative peace, and effective governance? We hate all the deregulation, the rising wages, the low unemployment, the booming stock market, the no new wars. We hate it. Securing the border, we hate it. Well, the Democrats do hate that, but the other stuff, they're supposed to at least pretend that they don't hate. Although, economic misery, as you know, is the most fertile ground for socialists. So economic misery, if it were to continue, or rather economic misery, if it were to arise all of a sudden in this country, if we were to have people that were really out of work, big unemployment surge, then Democrats would have some kind of a case to make about how they should be in power. And that would also then allow the socialists within the Democrat ranks, although I think increasingly it's hard to tell the difference between a Democrat and a socialist, if there is any difference at all. Just a question of degree, maybe. But they don't have a case to make on the merits. So that's why they've relied on all this other stuff. The process weaponized against the president. The bureaucracy used as a check on the president of the United States. And that's also why Adam Schiff has been given all of this leeway by Democrats to run around just saying all kinds of absurd and silly stuff. I mentioned that he's not willing to let the election play out without first undermining the election. Producer Mark, please play clip 15, if you would.
But what the House counsel is saying is we have been trying to get testimony from people like Don McGahn. We've been trying to get the grand jury material as part of the impeachment inquiry. And for those senators who say, well, why didn't the House wait on the Ukraine articles until you exhausted the court remedies? The reason is because on those articles, the president was trying to seek foreign help in the election. It's not sufficient to say, let's wait another year or 2 years to get these witnesses in if the president is trying to cheat in the next election. So we moved forward with those articles that had the greatest sense of urgency. We continue to press the case with McGahn, with the grand jury material, with those that weren't as urgent. And I think that makes all the sense in the world.
That's a stunning and wildly dishonest charge from Schiff. The president's trying to cheat in the next election. That's what he's saying here. I mean, you heard him. Cheat how, exactly? What was the cheating? Get me an answer about a thing if you can, if you have the time at some point, thanks. Oh, no answer was given, nothing was done. That's cheating in an election? This is absurd. But they know, Schiff knows, that the case was weak. This is a repeat, isn't it? These people, what is it, Yogi Berra, deja vu all over again, right? Yogi Berra was, he was the baseball.
Oh,
right?
Buck.
What was?
He was a Yankee, yes.
Yeah, Yankee.
Yeah.
Was he a player or a manager?
He was a player, and he managed the Mets as well.
Both. That's what.
And
see?
the Yankees.
Yeah, okay.
He recently passed away a couple years ago.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah.
I was unaware of that. Maybe when it's nice weather, we'll have to go, you and producer Brandon, also to a baseball game. So
Yeah.
I can actually
I would love to see you at a baseball game.
I would experience America.
Have you ever been to Citi Field or Yankee Stadium?
Do they serve rosé in the stands or just beer?
They have wine and stuff. Citi Field, I will say,
as long
the
as they've got
best
some
food in
bougie
baseball.
beverages, I could make it happen.
Best food in baseball at Citi Field, I will say.
Is it really true?
It is fantastic. It's not just ballpark hot dogs and chicken fingers anymore. It's other stuff.
Fun things. A little digression here from
Sorry.
Schiff being gross. No. I was going to say, I actually went, because I'm a real American, I went with my family to PBR on Friday. Do you know what PBR is?
Yeah, professional bull riding.
Yeah.
Why?
It's amazing. How could you, producer
I
Mark?
couldn't think of anything more boring.
I mean, your grumpiness is legendary at this point, but you get to watch this amazing animal like contort and jump and do all this crazy stuff, and you got some dude who's just there with like a Kevlar vest on and a cowboy hat, trying not to get impaled, trying to protect, his ability to have future generations of cowboys, if you will. It's not an easy thing.
I just worry about the mental health of these people that are doing it. Like, why?
I mean, it's awesome. It's so fun.
I'm sure it's fun to watch, but like,
super
why
fun to
is the
watch.
person who's doing it?
I mean, why do people jump out of planes, man? Because it's awesome.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, exactly. So, I was like the guys that they wear the suit, and they like fly through the air with their arms out and stuff. I forget what that's called. Like the human flying squirrel thing. No. The human flying squirrel thing.
Oh.
That's super dangerous. But
Yes.
people definitely die doing that. And they're always like, oh, well, it's very dangerous.
People
Anyway,
die jumping out of planes.
PBR is awesome for a bunch of reasons. One is everyone's there just to have a good time, and there's no like one team hating the other team thing. There's no like, oh well, we can't be friends because you're a Islanders fan, for example, and I'm a Maple Leafs. Are they still a team?
They are.
There we
They're
go.
One of the
I'm
original
a
6
Maple
teams.
Leafs fan, eh?
How many of the original 6 hockey teams can you name?
The original 6
National
teams?
Hockey League teams. Yeah.
The Maple Leafs.
Yeah. I just gave you one.
The Kings.
No. L.A. did not get hockey till the 70s.
The New York Rangers.
Yes, that is one of them.
The Red Wings.
Wow, yeah.
You know why I know this, by the way?
Why?
Because I used
You
to
read a
play
book or something?
Nintendo hockey game back in like the late 80s when there were like only a few teams. I'm
That
trying to
makes
remember.
sense.
I'm trying to remember the teams.
Yeah, but that was right after expansion.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like
Yes.
it was, so I just remember some of those teams. The Oilers? No,
No.
that's. Wait, no. What am I trying to think of? Not the Oilers. There's a team were they a hockey?
I mean, the Oilers are a hockky
Yeah,
team, but they're
Oilers.
not an original six team.
Oh, okay. I was Oilers.
You're
now.
missing the Montreal Canadiens.
That's a team.
Yes.
Oh,
The
okay.
Boston Bruins.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
we got
Bruins. I
six.
should have gotten the Bruins. Okay.
And the Chicago Blackhawks. That's the last one.
I didn't even know that was. I'd never even heard of that.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was like a AAA baseball team.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, learning the things as we go. I'm just telling you all, PBR is really fun. I had a great time. Family was there. You get to see the Bulls. And, you kind of, like, if you want to get up and go get a drink, it's one of these things, too, where, like, you're not missing that much because, like, there'll be another Bull ride in a minute, so it's not like you've missed the big touchdown or something.
How long does that take? Like, how long is the whole event?
It's like a 2-hour deal.
Really? Okay.
Hour 45. It's
All
not long. It's not long. It's not like a football game when you arrive for the tailgate and you're there all day.
Sure.
It's like an hour and 45, whatever.
It's like a quick entertainment kind of deal. All right.
A question for you, though. This is one that I talked to my family members about. How much would I have to pay you without any training, but you got it, and you got to get on the bull, and you have to try your very best to stay on for 8 seconds. You need to be on for 8 seconds to score.
Oh.
How much would I have to pay you to get you to get on that bull?
Did you ask your family about me specifically?
No,
or just in general?
I asked
Okay.
them about themselves.
I was curious.
I wanted their individual price point for this.
It would have to be in the six figures.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're risking
Correct.
terrible injury.
Exactly. That's
so
what
enough to pay my medical bills plus some.
That's what I was saying. I was like, yeah. I mean, you'd think you do it for like a couple $1,000 or something. You're like, except if I separated my shoulder and had like a lifelong injury from it. So.
Have you ever done one at a bar? Like the
Oh
fake
yeah,
one?
there's one in Dallas. There's a place in Dallas on McKinney Street where I am legendary for both my buck hunter skills as well as being able to ride the mechanical bull like a superstar.
Is this before or after alcohol?
Only after.
Okay.
I'm great at both. Only after. All right, Shifty Ship is coming back.
But that's not what the American people want. It's not what the founders contemplated. And if you ask even a majority of Republicans around the country, they want the evidence to come out. And so I think that withholding the articles is thus far flushed out where Mitch McConnell is coming from. It's required senators to go on record. And it's my hope that that pressure will result in a real trial fair to the American people.
That's right. You've got Adam Schiff here telling you that everyone wants the evidence to come out, which is such a dishonest way of framing the issue because, yeah, of course everyone wants the evidence to come out, but they don't want Democrats. If they were asked this question in a way that was more honest the situation, no, they don't want a situation where Democrats get to determine what evidence is presented, what evidence is suppressed, what witnesses get called, what witnesses don't. We've already gone through this. Democrats got to do exactly what they wanted, exactly the way they wanted to do in the House. And now in the Senate, they're doing everything that they can to try and game this process, too, even though they don't have the votes. They are not in charge, but they think they can still act like they are in charge. These people are a disgrace. I still think that Nancy Pelosi is going to transmit the articles of impeachment, but now I'm thinking that, and this might be a way that we'll have to see how the judges would rule on this in my little wager here with our friend Jesse Kelly. They may add something. So they may kind of hold it and then add to it and then transmit it, which is a middle way path between transmitting it as is or just not transmitting the articles of impeachment at all. And this is also, you have more evidence of this by them claiming that there's more evidence. Play 16 here. Here's more Shifty Shift.
But we ought to also start out by having the documents come out, and the documents that have been coming out lately are increasingly incriminating of the president. You can see why they want to cover those up. Those documents ought to be provided as well.
Just Fantasyland stuff. Just make up whatever you have to make up now to try to increase the political pressure, to try to create a change in perception that's advantageous to Democrats. That's what's underway here. That's what they are trying to do. And I've got to tell you, folks, if we start napping on this one. There's nothing these Democrats there's nothing that is too shameful for them to do if it's going to hurt Trump in this election year. I mean, they are completely insane with their hatred of this president and his supporters. And they really do. I think that a lot of them have convinced themselves. I never know who is being cynical as a Democrat and who is a true believer. I think there are enough true believers who really think that the country is at stake here unless they cheat to win.